Hello everyone, and welcome to Let's Play Hearts of Iron 4 Black Ice version 8.0.5 Arms Against Tyranny, where we are going to play as Empire of Japan. Now, as you might know, the mod has undergone some serious development in the past few months. I did a run as France on the test version some weeks ago to assess how big these differences are, and I wasn't disappointed. I already considered Black Ice as one of the most complex mods ever made for Hearts of Iron 4, but with the factory split and addition of agriculture, power management and resource processing, they again moved it to the next level. If I'm honest though, not one of these changes is going to be good or beneficial for us in any way during this playthrough. On the contrary, any of these might be what breaks us in the end. See, Empire of Japan was historically, as is modern Japan today, almost completely dependent on import of raw materials. Their aggressive expansion into the territory of China and Southeast Asia during the Second World War was in large part due to insatiable hunger for coal, tin, iron, oil, and rare metals like gold. And as far as agriculture goes, we will need to constantly feed a large war machine with, as the time progresses and the war escalates, dwindling amount of sources to continuously exploit. Now let's top it with the fact that I am planning to play for the first time on the very highest difficulty, and the fact that Black Ice makes it pretty much impossible to get any reasonable compliance in occupied territories. You see the problem? Overall, we are in for a wild ride that might very well end quite historically, with us being crushed under the weight of our own industry and the inability to feed the machine anymore. Protecting our supply lines and resources is going to be extremely important, and I fear we won't be able to sit it out for any extended time unless we manage to secure the needed resources and reduce imports. In short, this will be one of the biggest challenges, and I'm really looking forward to struggling and hating myself for choosing to do this. There, that's the positive and happy intro for you. Now let's talk, as is usual, about the setup of this video and the upcoming episodes. The episode number 1, is fully an introduction into the campaign, which might take well over 50 or even 100 episodes. We will talk a bit about how Japan got to where it is and what our plans for it are. Then we will look at the description of Japan and its modifiers, after which we are going to jump into the game, go through our political settings, research, industry and trade, army, air force and navy. We are going to talk a bit more about what we plan to do with them, and then end the episode by setting everything up. Starting from episode 2, we are going to focus on the build-up while following the plan set in this episode. This is why this episode will be just talking. I always stress that it's important for me that you guys know what the plan is and that we are following it. To that point, I have taken the liberty and read most of the Japanese focuses and created a detailed plan for the first 3.5 years of the campaign. I wanted to do the Marco Polo Bridge incident, the focus that starts the war with China, as close to the historical date as possible, while making sure that we are truly ready for it. This alone, in my opinion, requires a careful planning to execute on this kind of difficulty. If you are interested in knowing the final tally, we are going to trigger a war with China in 708 days after the game starts, so roughly 5 months after the historical date of the 7th of July 1937. Okay, now let's briefly look at the history of Japan and where it is at the start of the game. Japan has spent a large period of what we see as the modern era in seclusion. Called Sakoku in Japanese, the country spent over 250 years during the Edo period as close to the world as was possible. The policy was abandoned after the United States, under the threat of war, forced Japan to open its ports and sign the Convention of Kanagawa in 1854. This allowed American traders into Japanese ports and opened the ground to similar treaties with other major powers. With Japan forced out of its isolation, a brief period called Bakumatsu began, during which a Boshin war between the shogunate and the Emperor of Japan took place. While the shogun, the military leader of Japan, had much larger army and territory, The emperor's smaller but pro-Western and Western-armed faction quickly gained ground and eventually won the war, leading to the emperor becoming a sole ruler of Japan. As this conflict can be easily seen as a clash between the traditional culture of Japan and the imported Western customs, we can also see the ending result as the first step for Japan's rise to power. With the shogunate no longer a player in the domestic politics, Japan entered what is known as the Meiji era. A period of rapid westernization and modernization, Japan en masse imported knowledge from all around the world. Forced to open its ports and society, Japanese observers were in turn sent all over the world to learn and bring back modern practices and knowledge that was quickly absorbed and exploited. It is also in this time that we see the first Japanese expansion. The first Sino-Japanese War was fought from 1894 to 1895, with a goal of gaining control over Korea, or, more precisely, to deny control of Korea to China. Traditionally, a tributary of China, Korea already had numerous confrontations with the Japanese. Most notably, in 1876, Japan forced the same unfair trade treaty on Korea that was forced on them 2 decades prior. However, the continued clashes with China over who will be the dominant power on the Korean peninsula eventually led to a full-blown conflict. It is fair to say that the war resulted in a total victory for Japan, and as a result, Korea proclaimed its independence, Japan gained Taiwan, and China was even forced to pay reparations to the attacker. It also proved the vast superiority of Japanese army and navy, which were now using Western weapons and tactics as part of the continuing Meiji reforms. Estimated casualty numbers talk about 35,000 dead on the side of China, with only 1,500 dead on the side of Japan. That is, if we count only casualties from the actual battles, as the disease claimed another near 12,000 men on Japanese side. Japan didn't enjoy its victory for long, however, as it was soon challenged by another power, Russia. While China and Japan were fighting, Russia greatly strengthened their position in the region by securing Port Arthur at the Liaodong Peninsula, basically at the door of Japanese territory near Korea, with their Eastern Fleet having their main base there. This, together with increasing clashes over the influence in Manchuria, eventually led to a much larger Russo-Japanese War in the years 1904 and 1905. While this war was much harder and costly for Japan, and their casualties and manpower were almost similar to the ones suffered by Russia, Russia lost much, much more. Their Pacific Fleet, and even the Baltic Fleet that was dispatched to help and sailed across the world to get there, were decimated, and their army demoralized by the defeats and the zeal of the Japanese in combat. What was worse, the Russian population was against any further escalation of the war and rioted against the Tsar, forcing him to concede to the Japanese. This defeat meant international humiliation for Russia, as it was the first time a great European power was defeated by an Asian nation. Japan, on the other hand, gained much. Apart from Port Arthur itself and recognition of their sovereignty over Manchuria and Korea, they gained international recognition and respect of their military power, which eventually led to their full annexation of Korea in 1910. It is here where the Japanese overconfidence and sense of superiority is born. World War I was significant for Japan in 3 main areas. First of all, as Japan joined the war on the side of the Entente based on a treaty with United Kingdom, it was able to secure new colonies in South Pacific from Germany. Second, the war in Europe and the need for supplies and equipment sparked unprecedented economic growth in Japan, as its industrial base and trade routes were largely unaffected. Third, the crippled European powers were unable to protect their interests and traditional markets in Asia, allowing Japan to vastly increase its influence throughout and after the war. The interwar period is then marked by a marked increase in nationalism and right-wing extremism. This was only strengthened by the period of the Great Depression. While Japan was affected only mildly, its economy shrinking by only 8% during this period, it was affected enough to further increase the racial tensions and taste for expansion. This resulted in the 1941 invasion of Manchuria that was executed after a false flag operation, eventually leading to the creation of a puppet state called Manchukuo. And while there were no more wars or conflicts in the next 4 years, the tension, nationalism, and desire to expand in Japan only grew, fueled by feeling of divine favor and racial superiority on the side of Japan. Which brings us to the current year of 1936, where we start the game. Now, let us continue by looking at the modifiers and description of Japan. Empire of Japan. So the basic information, our leader is Okada Keisuke. His ideology is fascist, government is a fascist regime, elections never, and ruling party militarists, which is a strange mixture of both military and civilian government, with neither side being able to work together. Great. Brief history. The Empire of Japan stands at a crossroads. Hokushinron, the Northern Expansion Doctrine, is favored by the army and calls for an advance into Siberia. Nanshinron, the Southern Expansion Doctrine, is supported by the Navy and has the rich European colonies in Southeast Asia and the Pacific as its target. And then, of course, there is always China. Japan possesses a formidable military, but its industries are starving for resources, and the time is running out. Which path to choose? So this hints at a number of things that we will have to address as we are getting play, because let's leave this to the actual map and the discussion where we set our targets and the possibilities for expansion. So Empire of Japan, main modifiers, we are militarist, which means fascist. We can send volunteers, justify war goal time when at war with a major -60%, daily command power gain multiplier +3%, and embargo tension limit +100%. We have the state Shintoism, political power gain increased by 5%, division recovery rate increased by 10%, and factory bomb vulnerability lowered by 10%. That's actually a nice bonus, I didn't know about that one. Since the Meiji Restoration, we have sought to use the worship at Shinto shrines to promote imperial loyalty and aid in nation building. This has allowed us to build up a country that is ready to sacrifice much in the name of the state. Zaibatsus, daily political power cost +0.2, and civilian factory construction speed increased by 10%. No description. And militarism. War support is increased by 10%, vehicle war support is increased by 0.1%, research speed is lowered by 5% unfortunately, justifiable war time is lowered by 20%, mobilization loss cost lowered by 25%, but civilian factory construction speed is lowered by 5%. Okay, so we're getting a bonus from the Zaibatsus though, which means that we are still at +5%. Tank assembly plant construction speed and air assembly plant construction speed is increased by 5%. We'll have way more modifiers when we get into the game though, these are just the basic ones. And then we have a couple of doctrines here that hint at what we're about to face. So the Southern Expansion Doctrine. The Southern Expansion Doctrine, or Nanshinron, favors gaining resources in the south by expanding our naval base and our navy, as well as focusing on our enemies in that area. The navy favors this particular doctrine. The ultimate battleship. As we are not rich in resources, we must ensure we put it to best use. We will build the most powerful battleship ever put on the surface of the planet, capable of defeating any enemy in a head-on engagement. And then we have the Divine Wind. During the 13th century, the Mongols attempted two major invasions of Japan in 1274 and 1281 AD. However, on both occasions, a massive typhoon obliterated the Mongol fleet, forcing the attacker to abandon their plan. The Japanese believed that the typhoons had been sent from the gods to protect them from their enemies and called them kamikaze, divine wind. Well, okay, let's select the country. And Well, yeah, here are more of the modifiers, but I'm gonna jump into the game because I feel there might be more. As I mentioned, we are going to play on the highest difficulty for this one, which is gonna be a nightmare. Black Ice mode. Black Ice is life. Brutally unfair. Be ready to watch as years of preparation is undone by nearly unlimited enemies. Designed to make grown men cry. The only mode that matters. This separates the men from the boys. Winning this would make Panzero proud. Well, we played Germany on Veteran and we were able to win, so hopefully the Black Ice difficulty is not going to be that much harder. But I'd like to mention that I've never played Japan before. I never really played this campaign at all, apart from investigations for this playthrough, so this is going to be fun. Well, the difficulty. Political power is lowered by 20%. Production efficiency cap, same as the veteran difficulty, lowered by 10%. Lack of resources penalty, though, is increased by 20%, so that's something that's gonna really be an issue for us. It was 10%, it's an extra 20% on top of the default, so that sounds horrifying. Factory output is lowered by 10%. On top of the additional 5%. Okay, so we had 5% at veteran, now we're gonna have 15% reduction on this difficulty. Great. Maximum planning factor is lowered by 25%, and daily opposition party support is increased by 0.02. Great. That's just great. Okay, and in custom game rules, I'm going to let it all be. There was just one thing that I wanted to change here. Yeah, we have minors at the normal research. The maximum for the level is normal. Okay, historical unit spawns will be enabled, which helps Germany and England. There is a bit for Soviet Union, but mostly for Germany. And that's about it. Cool. So I'll see you in the game. Welcome to Japan. Actually, welcome to Empire of Japan, which is much larger than just Japan. We have a ton of territory that we will need to take care of. We have Japan proper, we have the entirety of Korea, then we have a little bit of territory up here in the northwest, Holland-Boer. I'll explain what this one is for. We have Taiwan, and then we have a lot of these little tiny islands here that's gonna be a nightmare to defend once the war with United States breaks out. But we'll burn and fall into the river on that bridge once we get closer to it. Now let's start by looking at what Japan is, what we can see here, and what we're gonna do, because we need to start pretty quickly to get our affairs in order. So as I mentioned, Okada Keisuke is our leader. He is actually lowering fascism support by 0.01 every day, and acceptance of fascist diplomacy is lowered. This is something that's gonna cause a lot of issues for us, but I'm pretty sure he's not gonna be seated there for long. There's actually a coup that's gonna happen quite soon, which was targeted against him by the military, so we'll see what we get after that. We have 65.3 million people in our core territory, while total population of our empire is 107.69 million people. So about 42 million people already are living in the non-core territory. We have 30 states. Our main modifiers, oh god, there's so many. London Naval Treaty Signatory. Okay, so this lowers our dockyard output by 5%. We're giving Navy intelligence to others, and we have limits on capital, carrier, and cruiser type ships. And dockyard construction speed is also lowered by 2.5%. We have signed the London Naval Treaty, and accordingly are restricted in the size of our capital ships. Then we have the state Shintoism, the Zaibatsus. We've discussed those, but then there's duplicate research efforts. Air research speed lowered by 10% and aircraft engine research speed lowered by 10%. Is there anything more here? No. Well, there's inter-service rivalry and balance, which I believe pertains to the duplicate research efforts as well. See, in Japan, there was a bit of an issue where the different branches of the military, mainly you hear this about the Navy and the Army, but I guess even the Air Force had issues with that. They were rivaling each other, and they fought constantly over resources and production capacities, which led to a lot of inefficiencies, which eventually were quite nightmarish, to be honest, to manage, and were one of the major downsides of the Japanese efficiency. Unyielding spirit. The spirit of the Japanese people are high, and they will not go down easily in a fight. So division organization is increased by 10%, recruitable population factor is increased by 5%, non-combat out-of-supply penalty is lowered by 20%, division recovery rate increased by 15%, reinforced rate up by percent, and supply grace 48 hours. That's actually really amazing. Radical factions in the IGA lowers daily political power gain by 0.5 and weaker stability by 0.5. Radical factions in the military have been losing support for the past few years, but they are still large enough to launch a coup should something trigger them. Okay, that's a bit of an ominous foreshadowing, but the 0.5 political power is actually gonna hurt us at all. Plus the stability. Yeah, we're losing about 0.8% every week. That's not good. The situation is stable. Okay, so this is something that's gonna probably change soon. Island hopping mechanic. For each of the following islands controlled by the enemy. For each of the following island controlled, the enemy will have a large malus, while we will gain a large bonus, and vice versa. Okay, so it's even now. We own Okinawa, Iwo Jima, Marcus Island, Saipan, Palau, Caroline Islands, and the Marshall Islands, while United States own Guam, Wake, Midway, and Hawaii. And there's Bismarck Archipelago owned by New Zealand and Solomon Islands. Gilbert Islands are owned by Great Britain, but these flags are so tiny. Solomon Islands, is that Australia? Solomon Islands? Who's owning Solomon Islands? No, British Malaya. Okay. Sorry, the flag was just so tiny I couldn't really read it properly. Then we got the resource war. Japan lacks many resources. It would be almost impossible to synthesize what we need. To the blind military command, the answer is only one: war. Mineral resource extraction factor is lowered by 5%. Synthetic refinery construction speed lowered by 15%. Same for the rubber refineries, and synthetic resource research speed lowered by 10%. Great. So not only do we lack resources, we also have a huge penalty to, trying to work around that with our economy. Gekukujo. Political power gain lowered by 4%, division organization by 20%, and land doctrine research speed lowered by 20%. We need to control the young idealistic officers and their attempt to redress the social injustice through force and assassination. Okay. Stagnant naval AA development. Naval anti-air attack lowered by 20%. Research lowered by 60% for naval AA. And dual-purpose naval gun research lowered by 30%. Okay, so that's something we also need to keep in mind, because this is gonna be a huge nightmare. The naval AA research 60% malus. God damn it. And US-Japan commercial treaty. Consumer goods factories lowered by 1%. Factory output increased by 2%. Iron output increased by 40%. And the United States of America trade cost lowered by 20%. This is something that actually led to Japan attacking the United States eventually, because the US one-sidedly canceled this treaty and then even went as far as to blockade Japan. I mean, what Japan was by that time doing was definitely worth it, but in Japanese eyes, not so much. Inter-service rivalry is balanced, and winter heating. Okay, that's a general mouse. We get consumer goods factories increased by 2%, and civilian fuel consumption increased by 2%. Due to extreme cold, more resources will need to be diverted to keeping our population from freezing. This one goes away and comes back every winter. Well, goes away in every summer and comes back every winter. Now we have a couple of ministers here already. Hirohito, the Emperor, gives us extra 10% stability, and monarchy support increased by 0.01. Wait, we can replace him? No, we can't. Okay. Figurehead. We have Hachiro Arita as our, what is he? Foreign Minister. Okay, trade opinion factor plus 20% and increased fascist support. It is pretty good. Shizuichi Tanaka is our interior minister. Non-core manpower plus 1%. That's actually pretty good. Foreign subversive activities efficiency lowered by 30%. Resistance growth speed lowered by 5%, but compliance lowered by 5% as well. It's not bad. What BICE does, as you might have noticed, is you get a lot of tiny bonuses and modifiers, so changing something is sometimes really hard because, when you get someone like this, you get 5% bonuses, or lose a little bit. Okinori Kaya is actually amazing. He lowers the consumer goods factories by 5% and lowers communism support, so that's pretty good. And the last one that we have here is Sadao Araki, who is a stout fascist and propaganda guy. Increases fascist support by 0.07. Okay, as far as our national policies go, we have partial mobilization already in place. That's good. That makes things easier for us. Level of nationalization, key industries are nationalized. Okay. That gives a hit to our factory output though. FDI regulations, foreign investors are completely banned, which gives us a lot of political power gain and vehicle stability, but otherwise it's a huge malus on the economy. We have industrial tariffs, high tariffs, which help with the economy. On the other hand, civilian factory construction speed is increased by 8%. Factory output is increased by lower stability and increases consumer goods. Actually, I was thinking the partial mobilization goes then to war economy and then to total mobilization, which requires 75% more attention and anything else. 300. Yeah, and we need to fight an enemy that has more than 60% of our total number of factories. That's not going to be hard. Okay, and we have high taxes, which lowers consumer goods factories, gives us output for dockyards and factories, but increases opposition, lowers our stability and political power gain. Okay, military mobilization is a limited mobilization, which is pretty good. We just need a general mobilization. Usually you get this one via an event or a focus, which is pretty good. Still a little bit of penalty to attack and defense, but not that much. We have high standards for training, that's good. Increases division training time a bit, but we get division experience gain increased and maximum training level increased. And division organization recovery rate and navy organization is increased. Good. We have extensive officer training, very good, gives us another bunch of bonuses. And service ages 19 to 30 bracket, that's the second lowest one. But it's fine for us right now. We have a huge amount of manpower, 941,000, so nearly a million, and that's with already 634,000 people in the army. So that's not an issue for now, but it's eventually gonna be something we'll need. I like that BICE does actually thing where you continue to get more penalties as you go higher, and they get really extensive. Same with the 2-year draft. We have currently a bit of a issue with factories and dockyards, and as you go lower and lower, you get a bigger bonus, but eventually you get to something like this. Factory undercard output by 25%. Plus the mouse stability, war support, yada yada yada. It's pretty drastic. We have the sensor press, no surprise, which is, I guess, pretty good for us. Wait, sensor press. Oh yeah, we need to. Oh, that's interesting. Free press gives so much malices, but even state press actually gives extra intelligence to others. Just very little. And we have major restrictions on security. Okay, but we're still not at police state. Gotcha. We have normal financial operations, so no basic, not even basic bonds or anything. We'll have to take that into consideration eventually. High investment into education is pretty good. Lowers our output but increase research. And we have foreign policy warmonger. Yeah, no kidding. Trade your opinion factor, but generally speaking, it's pretty good. And then we have these two lovely things here: lack of food and lack of fuel. Depending on how much food and fuel you have in your economy, you get increasing penalties, which can be pretty drastic. If we run out of fuel completely, our factory and Ducard output is gonna drop to minus 15%, and that's not good. And if we run out of food, our divisions, okay, not only divisions having a penalty of 20% to recovery and the stability lowered by 0.3, but factory output and the card output was by 20%. So with no food and no fuel, your factories drop by 35%. Well, that's just something you don't want to do. And so inside using a bit of fuel here. Okay, well, so our goal here for this is going to be eventually get some good ministers. There's, for example, Tsukizo Akinaga, which would further lower the consumer goods factories, and I think we can get him for 150 political power. And there's a bunch of others that I looked at, but yeah, we'll have to go through that. I don't think we'll have political power to spare, though, with this amount of difficulty. You know, getting some aircraft and tank designs would be great, but again, political power is going to be the biggest hurdle for us here. Now, national focuses. Japan has a very extensive focus tree, and many of these are really nice. They give you quite a lot of factories on the paper, but remember that they did the factory split. So right now we have 117 civilian factories, and we have 87 military factories. So when you see something like, here 4 military factories and 2 civilian factories, it's not, as extensive as it would be in the base game. So we have to be careful about that. Contrary to the logic that you might expect from me, we are going to start with the Manchurian project. Now, there is a bunch of splits here that are fairly easy to see. The left part is economy. Then here you have the general politics, connected with the economy. It's not, somehow divorced, because you get the things like Nippon Steel and 600-mile industrial belt here, but you also get industrial research, full employment, stuff like that. Then you have the Gekukujo here, which is addressing the general military situation. Here we have the Marco Polo Bridge incident, so through it we'll have to work towards the declaration of war on China. Here's found our own faction, and here the Manchurian project, which is focused heavily on Manchukuo, who is our current vassal. We actually have a few occupied territories. Korea is occupied. We have Manchukuo, part of it occupied over here. We have part of Republic of China, which I believe is Taiwan in this case, and Chinese Soviet Republic. I don't know what this one is. Oh, okay, so that's it's the same with Republic of China. Okay, so Taiwan, Kantoshu, and Hulunbuir. Okay, and Korea is Korea, and Manchukuo is the Hulunbuir. So they're overlapping. Now, as I mentioned before, the occupied territories are going to be kind of funny for us, because in Black Ice it is, I don't know if it's impossible, but I consider it nigh impossible to actually get high compliance. If you want to, I guess in many cases you can get it as high as 40%. That's what I managed to do with Germany, but not much higher than that. Well, the resistance is going to continuously grow and people are going to arm against you. Now, we have the civilian oversight here, but I'm going to switch it to local police force for all of them for now. And eventually, as we are going to start gobbling up China and other territories, we'll have to start thinking about things like forced labor, harsh quotas, and brutal oppression. Because at this point, for example, in Korea, we're getting 12% of the factories from 20% compliance. Now, I don't consider that a big of a deal, because they have only 13 factories. Manchukuo, there's 4 factories, and Republic of China, there's 9 factories. So if we, don't get much from them at this point, it's not a major issue. Nor do they have any major resources for us. I actually checked, and I don't think there's anything that would be that interesting for us. Yeah, there's a bunch of coal and tungsten in Korea. Taiwan has a bit of food and coal, and Moonbear doesn't have anything, so it's not an issue. But once we take China, we might have to go ahead, because look at how much resources there are, and start getting harsh quotas or something, because those would be good for us. Because harsh quotas, for example, give you local factories plus 20%, lowest resistance by 40%, and give you lowered local food needs and some other things. Well, on the other hand, it increases damage to garrison by 50%, requires 60% extra garrisons. So, that's not great. Brutal oppression, on the other hand, lowers food need by 15%, gives you extra 10% supplies and 10% local resources. And forced labor, that one might be the best for us, though. No, actually, harsh quotas are good for when there's most factories, because it gives 20%, while forced labor gives you local resources. So, yeah, martial law generally isn't good for anything, I guess. Military governor gives a bit of local resources and manpower. Okay. Secret police gives you a bit of factories and resources. Local police force just lowers resistance. Okay, so generally speaking, secret police might be just best overall when you have enough resources, because local police force lowers the damage to garrison and requires the least garrison, which is what we're gonna use for now. But yeah, just trying to give you the general oversight of that. Now, again, as far as the focus is going, we are going to start with the Manchurian project, which gives Manchukuo... No, actually, it gives us 26,314 manpower, but Manchukuo gets a bit of stability, political power, and war support. And after that, we're going to go with light industrial development. Now, the light industrial development gives Manchukuo 5 civilian factories, and it gives us 2. It also lowers their independence by a bit, 60 and 90, so that's 150 right at the bat. We are actually very close to annexing them. Wait, here, about 900 points away to actually annexing them. I'm not sure if we're gonna go as far, but lowering their independence might be a good idea. After that, we're gonna switch to guide the Zaibatsus, because I know that by the time we should be able to do it, which is, Toseha in power. This comes after the coup, and then we're gonna expand the Zaibatsus, getting more factories, 2 military factory, 1 naval dockyard, and we're gonna get research speed, factory output, and dockyard output bonus for 900 days. And then we're gonna go with the expand the Mitsubishi's but no, the Mitsui. Yeah, the Mitsui ones, because those were gonna give us 4 military factories, 2 civilian, and 2 tank assembly plants. And then we're gonna develop the aluminium sources, which I believe is here. Yep, that's gonna give us 2 7 factories and 5 7 factories to Manchukuo, boosting them. They don't have really a lot of factories to begin with, so these 10 factories in the beginning are gonna be a big of a boost for our puppet. And then heavy industrial development, which also I think might be here. Yeah, that gives them 4 military factories and 4 military factories to us as well. So that's the beginning. Again, we are starting with quite a lot of factories, but Manchukuo has only 7 military and 22 civilian. So right off the bat, we're gonna we're gonna give them 50% extra civilian factories and nearly double their military factories, which is gonna be very useful for them. I'm trying to jumpstart their production and economy because they don't have much to start with. So investing into them in the beginning, and we could, because there's 2 ways we could go into this. We could invest heavily into ourselves, or we can invest in Manchukuo and get a bunch of stuff done for ourselves as well. So, you know, I'm just trying this. I don't know if it's gonna work or not, but we'll see. So that's the basis for the political. Now, we have an intelligence agency, but I don't think we're going to use it much in the beginning. I'm going to spy on China, but I don't think we're going to spend many factories here because we're going to be very hard pressed. As we're going to inch closer to war, of course, we're going to invest a bit, but for now, we need every factory we can get. Well, research is gonna be fun. We don't have many slots here. 7, if I'm counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, 6. Okay, so we have 2 all-purpose ones. We have 1 for infantry and support and artillery. We have 1 for tanks, armor, and armed air. We have 1 naval, air, naval, and another 1 for naval and naval techs. So 2 naval, 1 for tanks, 1 for infantry, and 2 all-purpose. So the all-purpose one we're going to use for economy. This is going to be really hard though. We need to get the basic machine tools to start with. That's a no-brainer. Well, we're also going to boost our research. But then it's kind of hard on decisions. The left 3 tools give you a huge amount of production efficiency, which is something that we're going to struggle with extensively. We have only 20%. So just, wait, that's wrong. Just the improved machine tools gives us 8%, which is nearly 50% of what we're doing. And combined with the tool maintenance, you get 14, if I'm counting correctly. And you give another 4. Yeah, so fluorescent lighting, improved machine tools, and tool maintenance alone doubles our production efficiency, which means it doubles our production. While here we get dispersed and concentrated industry, which gives you factory output 10% and factories in state, which sounds great on paper, but remember, this doubles it and this gives you 10%. So, you know, we have to be wary of that, and the tools are definitely going to be the priority, because, you know, this is nice, but not when you have 20% production efficiency. But as we get efficiency higher, then this 10% starts sounding much nicer. There's also a couple of other things here that we will want. We will want construction, definitely. And then there's stuff like housing, which increases civilian factory production. Division attrition is lowered via hospitals, and schools gives you training time. But I was looking for something else. There is one that should... Is it here? Ah, yeah, civilian works. that gives you a flat bonus to vehicle stability, which is something that we will struggle with most of the time, because right now we are dropping at 0.8 weekly, and these ones are going to give us quite a nice way how to eliminate it together with some other stuff. As far as army goes, well, that's going to be fun. We have a bunch of things that we want to do. Japan has a weird, I'd say, amount of tanks. I don't know much about Japanese tanks, so I'm gonna use this playthrough as a way to get a bit more understanding about what the Japanese tactics were. But the good thing is that we have a tankette. The last tankette type we're gonna get in 1947, the Type 97. Right now we're using the Type 94, which I plan to produce all the way until the war with China breaks out, and then we're gonna upgrade it a couple of times if we can. And I would like to use it as the primary scout for our infantry. The Type 97, we're gonna, phase it in while we phase out the Type 94. As far as the tanks go, we have a large amount of tanks in storage, but eventually you can see that it comes to just a couple of tanks or one every few years. So yeah, we're gonna need amphibious tanks definitely for the island hopping, and then you get pretty quickly. I guess these are the heavy tanks. No, medium. So when we don't have any heavy. Okay, so we have just light and medium tanks, huh? Carrier chassis. Oh, it's a medium tank destroyer. Ah, I thought we had heavy tanks. So we have just the Type 95. That's interesting. Yeah, you see the tree is a bit different than we're usually that you usually get or that we're used to. I'll have to struggle a bit to understand this, but I'll do my best. Here's the types that we're gonna get. Yeah, if I looked at that, I would have guessed it. Okay, so you eventually in 1945 get Type 5 NATO. Okay, but mostly it's just light and medium tanks and tankettes with about one per year. That's manageable. It's the heavy and medium tanks and everything are gonna be pretty important for us because China is gonna drown us in their blood. So the only way how we can fight with it is by using armor. And in the north especially, they have a lot of plains where we are gonna excel. While in the south, it's mostly mountains and hills. So here they won't perform so well. There's also some jungle or forests, okay. But if we manage to take the north, then we should be able to take the south eventually, because it's just gonna at that point turn into war of attrition, and armored cars and stuff like that will help with that. So armor is gonna be a big thing for us, as will all of the Air Force and the Navy. Navy is gonna be a nightmare. First of all, we're gonna have to, blockade China using our navies, and I'm gonna focus heavily on army. But as we're gonna inch closer to the war with United States, we will need to switch gears and start focusing mainly on Navy and less on Air Force and Army. Hopefully by the time China is gonna be either pacified or completely dealt with. So research is primarily going to focus on industry and army, and Navy and Air Force are going to be a bit on the sidelines in the beginning. Now, trade is going to be fun. We don't have anything, literally. We have a bunch of coal and, what is that? Iron. But we're going to have to import most of our resources. So I'll have to try to find safe ports that will be able to provide us with resources as we're gonna advance. But hopefully, as we're gonna fight, we will be able to take more from China. Eventually, we're gonna, of course, invade the Philippines, and then we're gonna fight in the East Indies, where there's a lot of resources as well. We'll have to try to focus on autarky as much as we can, because again, the moment United States join the war, we can forget about importing anything. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Construction, that's fun. We'll have to build up our industry. Might sound good that we have 117 civilian and what is it? Wait, close this. 87 military factories, but Soviet Union starts with roughly 150 military and about 250 civilian. Germany starts with about 120 military and about 150 civilian, so they're all somewhere completely different. And United States, our biggest adversary, we're not gonna avoid them this time, starts with about 600 to 700 civilian factories and about 60 military. So there you have it. That should put things in a bit more perspective. Production, that's gonna be fun. There is a ton of things that we can produce, and we'll have to look at that in more detail, but I'll fix that first after the skip, and then I'll tell you my thoughts. As far as army goes, that is something kind of interesting, because we have a ton of units, and we have a ton of units with many division types. We'll have to think about what we're gonna do with them. Now, the basic infantry division is fine, I like it, but we'll have to modernize it. Kind of interesting that it uses so much pack artillery. I would like to get more medium artillery here and maybe phase out some of the pack artillery. But the combat width is at 30, which is already kind of high. So, I don't know, maybe something like this would work. It would definitely increase soft attack and defense, but not as much as I thought. Getting medium artillery though would be pretty good. Well, we want to change the cavalry scouts for our units for the tank and recon, which is much better in reconnaissance. And I would of course like to give them engineers and anti-tanks, but the real kicker here is getting the heavy artillery, because that is where you get most of your soft attack from. 11.7 is definitely something that we want, so we'll see if that's gonna be possible. This unit is a sort of a mixed division. I kind of don't like it, to be honest. I think we're gonna try to phase it out and change it to either Hohei Shidan, which is the infantry division, or to one of these. Jidosha Shidan is a really nice attack division of semi-motorized infantry. I would really love if we could just switch it to motorized or motorized assault, but we'll see. We'll use them as fast maneuvering units. And then the Sencha Ryodan, which is our primary tank division, it uses only a bit of medium tanks, so the goal is gonna be to give it a bit more light tanks and of course motorize it by the start of the war, because if we got it something like this, and by God, if we would be able to get it the motorized heavy artillery eventually, and the motorized anti-tank, I guess it would be good, but there's something slowing it down. What is slowing it down? Can I see it here? No. Is it the engineer company? Yeah, it's the... okay. So the engineering company, and we'll need to get it the motorized heavy artillery. But for that, I think we need the artillery prime mover, which we do not have available, I guess. Yeah, we need this one, the heavy tractor, which unlocks the motorized heavy artillery. So if that would work, I would be happy with it, but I believe we have only one of those at this point. Do we not? No, we have 2 of them and 1 motorized. Okay, so that's gonna be fun. And we then have the Kihei Ryodan. By the way, as far as the motorized infantry goes, there's not much to want here. It's actually pretty good. It could also use the motorized heavy artillery, but other than that, yeah, the anti-tank. But that's as far as it goes. This one is pretty good. So most work was gonna be done on the Sencha Ryodan. The Kihei Ryodan is a small cavalry unit. While it is, you could say it is not great, this is something that I want to keep actually. I would like to give them a bit more pack artillery, especially as we phase out the artillery from the Hohei Shidan, the infantry units, because we have actually a bunch of these cavalry units and they don't consume any fuel. So if we can use them and maybe even expand on them, eventually they could be useful in the war with China by bypassing the enemy divisions and maybe working as a general support units. I don't know, but I'm not planning to get rid of them as many probably do. I'd actually like to expand on them a bit. I don't think we're gonna give them heavy artillery, but giving them some engineering companies or something, they could be pretty useful. Then we have the Yaraku Sentai, which is the Marines. This is something that we will need to extremely improve. They need more pack artillery, something like this at bare minimum. I would like to give them also some more Marine Corps. They could use the anti-tank. I think tank and recon would actually work well here. Can you show me the modifiers? Yeah, I can't see the modifiers, but hold on. Right now you have what? Amphibious attack 42, and we give you the tanket. Yeah, it doesn't change it, so tanket recon would be great. We need every little bit of advantage we can get. Definitely not gonna get the heavy artillery, because that one lowers amphibious attack by 50%. But you know, anything we can do with these guys, we will. It's gonna be a matter, I guess, of the special forces limit though. Then we have the Chuton Chi Shidan, which is completely useless, and we're gonna phase it out. This is militia, and they're gonna be turned to either Kihei Ryodan, the cavalry divisions, or full infantry divisions. And then we have the Tokubetsu Keibitai, which is the military police, aka the garrison units, which we will duplicate eventually, believe it or not, and I would like to, even though that sounds horrifying, have at least one at every single island with a port, because that's where the fun is gonna get to. And while they can get overwhelmed and destroyed eventually, keeping them in the ports with, for example, the heavy artillery would make them able to repel most of the amphibious attack, or at least that's what I believe. But we'll see how much of this stuff we're gonna have at the start of the war, or at the end, depending on our outlook on it. So yeah, I think the last thing that I would like to mention before I do the skip, where I'm gonna prepare everything, is what's our general military strategy. Now, as I mentioned, we're gonna focus on war with China. Then we're gonna go the historical route, invade the Philippines, and fight in the Indonesia and Malaysia. But I would like to focus a bit on helping Germany. They're gonna be okay, well, as far as it comes to Europe. But one of the things that historically didn't happen is the invasion of Soviet Union. If we could do that by the time Barbarossa gets close to Moscow, I believe it would split the Soviet forces and allow Germany to break through, take Moscow, take the Caucasus, and win the war. So that's gonna be our priority. I don't know how we're gonna do that. If we can do it, I think we'll need Okay, we can justify war goals. So all that we'll need to do is not sign any non-aggression treaty with Soviet Union and support Germany at the right time. Which means by the time we need to be done with China and have basically a Northern Army and a Southern Army split done. And yeah, we'll need to deal with the Navy. Navy is huge. We have 220 ships at the start. A lot of them. I'm looking forward to this actually because it's gonna be fun. As I said in the beginning, we're not gonna focus much on them. We're just gonna finish up the construction that we have already running. And by the time that's done, I think we're gonna be already knee-deep in war with China. So upgrades to the Navy and their dispatch to create a wall against United States is gonna be important. Now I'm hoping that we're gonna be able to actually take Hawaii and hold it as a base, because that would cut United States operation range by a lot, but I'm not sure if we're gonna be able to pull it out. I know we're gonna get an event for Pearl Harbor, which is the declaration of war, so hopefully we'll be able to do it. Anyway, that's all for now. I'm gonna sit here, I'm gonna, work on the trade, work on the military, work on the technologies, everything, and I'll be back with an update where we're gonna go through that, what I learned, what I plan, and that's gonna be the end of the episode. And then in episode 2, we are going to start the fight. So thank you very much, and I'll see you after the skip. Okay, I'm back. And I've ran into quite a few things that I wasn't expecting throughout the setup. So I'll try to touch on them as I'll go through this. But suffice to say, I think we are in a much weaker position than I expected before. Well, we'll see. Anyway, let's start. Political. Not much to say here. I just went with the Manchurian project, as I said. This one is going to give us just the manpower, but it will open our way to getting some more civilian and military factories very soon, and I'm looking forward to getting those focuses done, because we are much weaker, as I said, than I thought before. As far as research goes, I have set it up. There is a little bit of an issue here that I'm not sure how we're gonna tackle. Now, those of you that watch me for some time know that the all-purpose slots I always use for industry, unless something is really missing, and then I temporarily devote it to something else. But for now, of course, we're going with the research technology, which is called electronic mechanical engineering, which is going to give us research speed plus 2%. And then we can get the mechanical computing. But the mechanical computing already takes 220 days, and I'm not sure if I want to dedicate so much time to it. Because in the meantime, we can get, the basic machine tools, and thus the quality control, and we'll get access to the dispersed and concentrated industry after we finish this one. So it might be worth to skip on the mechanical computing for now and get one of these before we go back. With that said, by 1937, we will also gain access to tool maintenance and the improved machine tools and the electric motor hoist. So again, I might just skip a bit on the research here, where we have the electronic computing, and focus purely on boosting our production. Now, this is usually not wise for long playthroughs, but if you just look at the difference, we're gonna get 4% from this one, and then 8 and 6% from these, and 4% here, effectively doubling our production just, through these technologies. So the sooner we get them, the better for us. But again, as I said, there's construction, and there's the civilian works, and many other technologies that we would like to get, and I'm not entirely sure in which order to get them. So we'll have to tackle this as we go through. Again, it's going to depend on the exact timing, but I know that the moment we get improved machine tools and tool maintenance available, we have to jump on them and get them as fast as possible, because just these bonuses, considering we have, 20% production efficiency now? Yeah, 20%. We need to get them immediately, because they pretty much just give us always like 40 or 50% bonus to production. That's just insane. As far as the other field goes, I looked at what we can get for our infantry. There's not much that we can do directly here at this point, apart from specialized equipment for mountaineers and paratroopers. I was considering getting the Type 100 early, but it takes way too long for us to be able to justify that to us. Same with the support companies. We of course want to get the combat engineers that are going to be amazing for every single unit we have, especially for the Marines. We need to have it, but considering it takes only 105 days and it's basically cheap and it doesn't require anything from us once we research it, I decided that we're gonna skip to the artillery, where we are a bit behind, and start upgrading the light artillery, regular artillery, which is gonna give us a bit of a bonus to what we have right now. 0.5 in breakthrough, 0.5 in defense, 2 in soft attack, 0.1 in hard attack, and that's about it, I guess. After that, I think we're gonna go with the howitzer, because it's a medium artillery that we're gonna use, and then we're gonna move to upgrading the heavy artillery, because that one is something that I'll spend a bit of time talking about. Now, as far as air goes, it's very easy. We need to get everything. There really isn't much that we can talk about, so I'm focusing on getting the white fighters for now. There's nothing that I would really want from the tanks, especially because all of these are 1947 technology, so no need to spend much time talking about that. Now the Navy though. The Navy is a bit of a bummer for me. I think there might be a bug in the game, but I googled and didn't find anything. What I'm talking about is that when you look at the templates for Navy, we of course want to get better carriers as soon as possible. I was thinking about skipping Hiryu and going straight to Shokaku, but I noticed that both... actually, no, Hiryu doesn't, but Shokaku, as a 1947 carrier, requires carrier hull advanced. And that pretty much, surprised me, because when you look at the technology, carrier hull advanced is over here. It's a 1940 technology, and it would take us 1363 days to get it at this point. And I'm kind of confused about how you can get it earlier, considering it's a 1947. Now, I haven't realized you might get it via a focus. Advanced carrier armor. Nope. Nothing here. Pacific Air Base. And either way, this is really far through the focus tree. So, I don't know. I was planning to build those, but I guess we might have to go through Hiryu and leave Shokaku to something like this. Taiho? Yeah, Taiho requires advanced carrier hull as well, and that's a 1941 carrier, so it's a bit weird. So, based on that, I actually opted for going with small caliber semi-armor piercing shells and separate fire mains, which are gonna just boost our Navy as a flat bonus to light attack, piercing, and stuff like that. The 1946, there's not much. We're gonna get eventually the medium caliber and small caliber armor piercing shells, and the diesel-powered emergency pumps. And after that, I'm gonna probably turn back and look at some of these. I don't know, the interwar submarine would be the first way to go with the improved hydrophone and early sonar. But yeah, the carriers, we seem to be locked out. So then we might go with the large interwar cruiser. I don't think they give you designs. Oh, they actually do. Okay, so here's Agano, advanced cruiser. It's again 1940 technology. Yeah, we would need to get this one. Well, we can design... I know actually a lot about Japanese ships. It's one of my hobbies since I played them in World of Warships, and I fell in love with the Japanese designs, so we might design some for us. Speaking of that and building, I went with the trade and I had to sign a ton of trade deals. Now, we positively have a ton of things that we will do here and import, which should give us a large amount of production. Now, it might be a bit of a bust because we're sinking a lot into the imports of iron and coal, and we're going to be producing a ton of steel and aluminum as a result, but I'm hoping that we can export that steel and aluminum and, import cheap iron and cheap coal and cheap bauxite and export it as steel and aluminum and get back our factories. We should be okay as far as energy production goes, and we have a focus that we're gonna get anyway. I think it's here somewhere. I forgot which one it is. Is it the industrial? Yeah, it's the 600-mile industrial belt, which gives you 2 hydroelectric plants, which is gonna boost our energy production. But yeah, the trade is gonna be a bit of a mess to do and manage, but I think I have it set up pretty well. One thing I'm not importing is food. We're just gonna let it run out for some time, and once we start hitting dangerous numbers, I'm gonna start importing it. The reason for that is that you get quite a lot of decay, about 0.5% every day, which at this point is 1,269 rations every single day, and that is at our situation, it's about 1/3 or 1/4 of our production. So, we just have way too much rations at this point, and we need to get rid of them. Unless we research some technology down the line which can fix that, there is a bit of them. Is it engineering and advanced tech? Or where is it? No, it has to be... Oh, it's here, in resource manufacturing. Yep. So here, the Freon refrigeration lowers the rations decay factor by 10%. You get commercial food processing here, which increases the production by 5%, and you got a couple of things here that can help as well with it. Same with the sulfa drugs here. We'll need to get those eventually because they increase the population growth quite significantly. But again, industry is our biggest concern right now. Same with the extraction at this point. I don't want to focus on it. We'll jump into it about 1937, 1938 when we take care of the more pressing production issues. Okay. With that said, let's jump into production. I've done a ton of changes here. We had a lot of free factories, so I had a bit of a playground for myself to work at, but yeah, quite a lot of changes. So first of all, the enlisted khakis, the field uniform 1904, got a bit of a boost. We need to produce as many of these as possible because we need to get a larger army. Same with the Type 38 infantry equipment. We need to rearm our troops and build a nice stockpile. Again, with 10 factories, we're producing 10 per day because our production efficiency is 19.6%. So as we research the technologies, you can expect this to jump to 20, and with the bonus from factories, something like 24, 26, which is going to be a huge difference. We're not going to produce too many machine guns or mortars, which we have a large stockpile with, until we actually get a better technology. Then I'm going to devote more factories to it to upgrade the existing equipment. We're actually not using jungle warfare equipment at all because we don't have any jungle warfare detachments. But I still think we can produce it way ahead of time because, once we need it, we'll need a lot of it. So building a stockpile ahead of time might not be a bad idea. Support equipment is one where I always run out, and you can see that we already need about 610 of these. We're going to be producing roughly 2 per day. And eventually, once we upgrade our production, about 4 per day, which is a reasonable amount. I don't want to touch it at all at this point. We need to get more. Actually, thinking about it, okay, only 7% is from lack of resources, but, still, this is something where you cannot really have too little. Support equipment is really important because if you don't have it, it hinders all of your operations. Same with recon.
We're missing about 315, and so I'm gonna get slightly more. From my experience, you take a lot of casualties in support and recon equipment, so building a stockpile is really good. Garrison, not much to say there. We will eventually need it for occupational forces. Well, actually, we need it even now for occupational forces. But eventually I want to start training units that are going to be put on the islands to defend them, at least the strategically positioned one. Amphibious warfare equipment, not much to say there. We need as much of this as possible as it's used by our marines. Cavalry, horse equipment, something I would usually skimp on, but considering we have 7 divisions of cavalry, I want to keep it running. Infantry guns, these are infantry support artillery or small artillery pieces. We don't have enough at this point, so that's why we produce more. Mountain artillery, or pack artillery as it's usually called, as again we're lacking some, so I'm adding more here because I want to not only produce them, but as I mentioned, I want to boost our current marines by giving them more of these, especially as we phase it out from our regular infantry. Light artillery, again, not much to say. For factories, we're missing about 50. Medium artillery, again, this is gonna, medium and heavy artillery that you can see here, both got 4 factories. And I don't know how much we're gonna be using of those, because I don't know how big of a stockpile we can actually use. Now, I'm pretty certain at this point that we're gonna have to split our infantry units into 2 types of divisions. Ones that will remain as they are right now, which is this one. We've switched of the pack artillery and attachment of heavy artillery, but again, it all depends on how much we'll produce. It's kind of hard to estimate now as our production efficiency is so low. We'll see. Horse transports, again, this is something your units need, or they move at a speed of 1 kilometer per hour. So again, we need to get it at least to 0 here and then build a huge stockpile, because as with the recon and support equipment, this is usually where you start taking pretty big casualties early on. Wide vehicles, just something that your units need for their command attachments. Transport trucks, this is something that we need for our motorized units, and if we want to upgrade some of them to it, again, we're producing 1 transport truck per, or it's not exactly 1 transport truck, but 1 unit of transport trucks every week. So unless we get much bigger amounts coming out of our factories, we'll be in for a bit of a trouble. Speaking of which, that 1 unit that we have has about 645 of these. So yeah, if we want the second one, what would that be? We have 108, and we would need additional 530 weeks to produce that. Awesome, isn't it? Again, we have a bit of an issue here, considering we have a bit of lack of resources here, but the issue is not so big. Heavy transport trucks are used for your supply needs. So that's something that we will need nonetheless. Again, I didn't touch this. And then the tanks. The armored cars will use, the tankettes will use, this is the heavy tank? I think that's the heavy tank. No, this one is the heavy. Oh yeah, it is the heavy tank. Okay, Type 95 heavy. We'll use these if we can produce some. At this point we don't have steel because we haven't started the economy yet, so I'm not sure how many we'll produce. And the Type 89B, again, we need to upgrade them. I haven't touched it again because we'll see how... I mean, the artillery and tanks and heavy equipment are just gonna be basically equipment of opportunity. Where we have enough, we're gonna start distributing it, and where we won't, we'll just keep laying low. And same with Airforce. There's a ton of things that we can upgrade, so I didn't touch it and just let it run. We'll keep upgrading and deploying the older models as they come. As far as Navy goes, we have a lot to build, so I'll just keep building that, and we'll deal with Navy and their upgrades once these will be finished. So that's as far as that goes. As far as recruitment and deployment goes, I haven't really made up my mind yet. there's a couple of things. We definitely need more infantry divisions, we'll need more tanks and these motorized units. But considering we have so little equipment, I think we might wait a bit before we start recruiting. I'll have the economy running for a bit so I can estimate the numbers before we start recruitment. Which brings me to the army setup. I have created basically 3 armies. The first one is Quantum Army, modeled after the historical Manchukuo fighting force. We will have it split between Hulunbuir Defensive Force, Hamkian Defense Force, and Shaanxi Border Patrols. Now, the Hulunbuir Defense Force and Hamgyong Defense Force each have 3 units of infantry and 2 of cavalry. And this is something that I forgot to explain in the beginning. We have a mechanic which is called the border conflict with the Soviet Union. They can actually attack us in these areas over here and over here, which is why we have it under our control. And we can put our units there and actually attack them. You can get a lot of army experience through these conflicts and additional production and build slots and equipment depending on what you want if you are able to win these. So I'm going to try to devote some of my military to be stationed in these areas and actually fight the Soviet forces that will constantly harass us there. I'm pretty sure about it, the AI likes to use this mechanic. The Shaanxi Border Patrol will be located here at, well, actually here at the border of Shaanxi, because this is our puppet, and will use its territory to actually invade Shaanxi. Main forces are going to be advancing through here and down towards the border of the Republic of China as fast as possible, but Shaanxi mountains and plains I think will be ideal for cavalry to move through, and hopefully we'll be able to sweep through these weaker areas. I'm expecting them to not have much in the way of infantry equipment, so if we can give our cavalry some pack artillery and some engineers and generally making them stronger, they might be able to perform quite well here. The second is the Imperial Japanese Army, which consists of the 1st General Army, which is comprising completely of our infantry units. Then you have the 2nd General Army, which also comprises of infantry units, and then you have the 3rd Mobile Army, which is the 2 tank divisions or heavy armored divisions or combined arms, and the semi-motorized division that you can see here. And then we have the Imperial Reserves, which are the units that we need to change into infantry or motorized divisions. And you have the Imperial Naval Landing Forces. I actually checked, this is the name that they used for Marines in Japan, so I went with it. But these bring up an interesting issue. We currently are way over limit on our special forces, which is a little bit of an issue. I don't know why that is. It calculates it from all of the battalions, so hopefully we can enlarge our army enough so that we'll have these units at least in this shape, if not in a better one. If not, we might have to take away some of the marine battalions and switch them to pack artillery or something. I even investigated the possibility of adding some light infantry here instead, but I don't think that's gonna work. Light infantry... yeah, they still give a little bit of a penalty to amphibious attack, so I don't think I want to do it. But if we reduced the size of the units to about this, it would mean 4 times 4, 16, which would be quite a bit of a difference. Well, we'll see. Maybe we'll get some bonuses along the way that will boost our capacity for special forces. But still, with this number, the Marines are going to have a huge issue. It's not listed here, but I think they will have a huge penalty to their performance in combat. So I'll have to keep an eye on it. Air Force, I have distributed, actually put a lot of new Airforce units in these airports, but we'll have to investigate and move them as we're gonna go through, because many of these cannot actually reach anything reasonable. So it might make sense more to put them along the coast of Japan and have them patrol the seas and attack some stragglers. We'll need long-range aircraft here, and we'll also need to make sure that we actually move logically along the coast and airfield so that we can always have support from our aircraft, because not only will the heavy weapons like tanks and motorized units and stuff be our biggest advantage against Japan, but also against China. I need to go to bed. Against China, but also the fact that we'll keep a superiority on the sea and air will make a bit of a difference. So, we'll have to play every card we have for this. Okay, and with that said, I think I can end the episode. There's two things that remain to be seen. First of all is the reforming of our units, because we have no army experience. So that's something that we need to keep in mind. Which brings me to the fact that, having so low political power, I don't think we'll be able to get the theorists soon enough, which would actually boost us in the daily army experience gain. But as I said, we might get quite a lot of army experience from the border conflict with Soviet Union, so hopefully that's gonna give us something that we can work with, because, every modification to your troops costs a lot. And while we will be training our units as we go, I think they're all actually trained, and just having them train without any purpose is a bad idea, because they would just burn through the limited amount of equipment that we have. So, not a great idea. Second thing that I wanted to mention is that I actually joined all of my navy that are gonna meet in Tokyo, and I'm gonna disperse them into fleets after we will be done with episode 2, because it's gonna take quite a lot of time. You can see that there is a huge amount of ships coming there, and we'll need to figure out what we're gonna do with them. My plan is to have 3 fleets at this point. One older fleet, which is gonna patrol around the border of Japan and these territories, and then newer fleets, which are gonna be stationed in Taiwan and I guess Kagoshima. And they're gonna, in the beginning, patrol the coast of China, because I want to be able to intercept any of their ships quickly. Eventually, this is gonna translate into having 3 or 4 fleets, a domestic fleet, then fast fleets, which are gonna be intercepting American forces, and one maybe fighting in the East Indies. I don't know. We'll see. But we have a big of a difference from what I've seen between various speeds and equipment as far as Navy goes, so I'll have to carefully, evaluate which ones we're gonna use. It's gonna come also down to the upgrades, so yeah, that's gonna be a whole another can of worms that we'll have to open. Cool. So I think we're done here, and we're ready for episode 2, where I actually unpause it and start doing stuff. So thank you very much for keeping with me through all of this talking. I hope you found it interesting. If you have any questions, please let me know. But again, as far as equipment goes, it really comes down to the fact that we're gonna have to use whatever we can and manage to produce. And I'm happy that I played Singapore before, because I have a feeling we're gonna be using a lot of upgrading and equipment reforming, and we'll see. I mean, I don't think we're gonna ever be in a situation where we can just disband any equipment. I can assure you of that. Anyway, again, thank you very much for joining me, and I'll see you in the next episode where we actually start this. So, see you there.